Welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we are going to be converting that leotard into the dress. If you have not subscribed to the channel, right now would be the best time to do so. Subscribe, share, like, and comment below if you have any questions. Let's go ahead and get started. First thing you need to do is lay out your fabric and pin your material down around the upper portion. So you're going to do the sleeve, the neckline, and you'll stop at the waist. You'll fold the waistline upward so that you can pin that straight across. Make sure that it's nice and even so that it's not a problem. The choice of material for today will be a stretch velvet, which I purchased from FWD. I'll leave a link at the top so that you can check it out. Besides that, go ahead and cut it out and set it aside. Moving on to the back, go ahead and lay down your material just as before. And this time I went ahead and used one of my skirts that I've had that I know fit. The pins that you see on the skirt are through and through. They're just to hold the front and the back together. That way I'm able to get like a flat pattern of what it actually is, and it's not folding or bulking on either side. Now remember, both of these patterns, we're gonna be cutting them both face up. So you're only cutting one of each. There I cut out the material. I gave myself an additional inch at the bottom of the skirt. And next to the waistline, I smoothed it from the pattern to the skirt. Only because you don't have any sharp parts of your body. Everything's pretty smooth and rounded. So you always have to make sure you round whatever you are copying or transferring over. Make sure that it's nice and smooth. I did extend the hemline because I didn't want it to be so short, but that part is up to you. Moving on to the front side of the skirt. It did have a split, which I wanted to incorporate into the dress that I was creating. So I went ahead and I measured it. I measured it from the side seam just to see how far it was. And from there, I was able to copy it. I went ahead and I grabbed the pattern that I had already made from the center. Make sure you mark your waistline. Okay, good. I had already marked it. Very good. Fold the top in half just so that you can see exactly where you are. I added some pins just to keep it nice and secure, and then from there I was able to copy it down so that I can create the front. If you did not want to add a split to the center front, then that means that you wouldn't need to have a waistline. Thunder, stop it. So with that being said, all you would have to do is copy the skirt onto the actual pattern so that you have a full front and a full back. Unfortunately, you guys, I recorded this just like as a portion of my screen, but I went ahead and I laid the back onto the material again so that I can get my center front. And where we had measured the 4 inches from where the seam was for the split to the side seam, I went ahead and I folded my center back over so that I can have that actual measurement. Once I did, that's when I went ahead and I cut out the center front. Now, for the center front of the skirt, you're going to have a left and a right side. Make sure you're cutting it on the right side, otherwise it can get tricky. Make sure you're cutting it on the right side, okay? For the actual split, make sure you add your seam allowance. So I'm not cutting exactly to the edge of the fabric, but I'm giving myself a 1/2 inch seam allowance. When you get to the distance that you want the split to be, from that point you can make a triangular cut and then continue cutting straight down so that you can have your actual split, which I'll show you why in a bit. Now that we did the right side of the center front, we're going to do the left side. Right where the pin is, go ahead and fold the material over so that you have your left side, and from there smooth everything out so that you can get ready to cut. Make sure that you are on grain for this side. Now, for your side seam, you're going to go ahead and cut it flush so that it's nice and even. Your hem will be flush as well. The only thing that will be off will be your seam where the split is going to be. Make sure you add a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and also do the same thing that you did with the other side when you were doing the opening for the split. Remember, at the bottom it ended up being extended where the split is at about 1 inch because we pivoted at a 1/2 inch, and then for the top portion, for the waist down to the beginning of the split, we anchored out again at a 1/2 inch. So that should give you a full inch at the bottom. To make sure that that split seam is balanced, lay the left on top of the right and match them up. At the bottom, as you can see here, I have one side that's a little bit longer than the other one. I'm not sure how that happened, but you know, sometimes things happen. Just go ahead and cut it off, make everything even before you go ahead and you start connecting and sewing. I also wanted the split to hang open, so depending on how wide you want it to hang open, just go ahead and anchor the ruler from the starting point of the split to the hem, and from there you can just cut a straight line, and that should give you a bigger opening. Now that that's all done, you can open up your material so that you can get ready to sew. The very first thing we're gonna sew is the very top portion of the split. So that seam to where the split opens, that's the only portion we're gonna sew. So go ahead and pin it and mark 1 inch past that triangular point, because that's where the split will actually begin. So it should look a little something like this, where the stopping point is about 1 inch away from that triangular point that we did. If there is anything that you are going to do as far as treating the raw edge of the fabric, right now would be the best time to do so. I just went ahead and I zigzag stitch it all the way down to the hem. From there, I went ahead and pinned the seam allowance for the split open. I did have to finagle these pins a little bit just so that they're anchoring out in the on the outside, so when it's time for me to sew, I can easily pull it. We are almost there. So the next step, once you have that, would be to sew across and complete your waistline. That way you're able to sew it to the side seam and complete the actual dress. So I did grab a piece of twill tape just so that I can make sure that that center front is not stretching. After I added it, once I put the dress on, I realized it wasn't worth it because it really made the center front too stiff, and I actually needed the extra ease. I would advise that you don't put it, only because it stiffens it a little bit too much, and depending on the stretch material you have, you need it to fit accordingly. And adding just that little bit of twill, it stiffened it way too much, so don't add it. Once you are done sewing the twill tape or sewing your waistline, you can go ahead and top stitch it just so that your seam allowance will stay in place. I went ahead and I top stitched it towards the top, so the seam allowance is going upwards. From there, you can go ahead and pin your side seams and also pin your sleeve so that you can get ready to sew. Once you're done with these things, you'll be ready to add your elastic. I'm not going to show how to put in the elastic, only because it would be the same way you would do the leotard. So if you want to know more, definitely go ahead and check out the other link down below so that you can finish up this dress. But that's pretty much it. Make sure you hem the front, make sure you top stitch your split, and from there you are done, my dear. You're ready to go out. This is an overall look on what it looks like. It's pretty fitted. I would make some small adjustments by expanding the hip line down to the hem. But besides that, I love the dress. I am gonna have some on Etsy if you are interested. Valentine's Day is right around the corner. But besides that, subscribe, share, like, comment below if you have any questions, and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.